Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored each weekend to give you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations powering the good in our community. We're kicking off with Gail Powell. She's the Executive Director for High Hopes Development Center. How are you doing, Gail?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing well. So we have a chance on your end to talk about all the good that you're doing around inclusion. It's a very cool model.
It is.
And let's start with a little bit of history, because it was 5 families that kind of came together and started creating what is this amazing legacy. So give us a little bit of history lesson.
Oh, I would love to. It's really a great story how in 1984, 5 families came together. They were very courageous. They could have just looked inward because they all had children with special needs, and there were not so many offerings for them at that time. They had young children with special needs, and then they also all had children who were what we call typically developing. And so they started this model. They knew they were driving everywhere for therapy. Speech therapy one place, physical therapy another place, occupational therapy yet another place. So young child in the car doing all this driving, and then there was no place for them to go to school. So they started this model of school and therapy together. And they didn't know that the inclusion was research-based. They were surviving. So they had their own children who were typical and their own children who had special needs. So the ratio was about 50-50 at that time. Now in our 12 classrooms, we have 60% children who are typically developing and 40% children who have special needs. So, and then our clinic model, we have all the therapies with the addition of feeding therapy now.
Yeah, I'm about to say the feeding therapy too is really cool. But I think what's interesting is, to your point, is you have this central piece of inclusion where all the kids are playing together, learning, and it creates empathy and respect. And there's so many neat nuances that we'll dive into in just a second there too. But then to your point, you're bringing all of these different therapies and opportunities together in one place so that families aren't having to go all these other places. They literally kind of have a one-stop shop and opportunity where it's all in one.
They really do. They really do. And so we see a lot more children in our therapy clinic than in our school, because we have a lot of what we call outpatients who aren't in the school. Last year in our therapy side, we saw over 800 children, 26,000 therapy visits, kids from 25 Middle Tennessee counties. In our school, we served, I think, 168 children total. So but it is. And when those kids are here in the school and the clinic, it's really this great approach between parent, teacher, therapist, all coming from the same direction, which is great.
Talk about specialization when it comes to your team, because obviously with each one of those different elements, there's a certain specialization that you then have to be able to provide. And so talk about what that means for your team.
Well, for one thing, we have children with a variety of diagnoses. And so we don't just specialize in autism, for example. We do see a lot of children with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, delays that maybe the child is too young for it to be diagnosed yet. But there have been literally 50 diagnoses that we've seen. But for example, we do have specializations, and I'll give you an example. Some therapists may work really well with and have a lot of training with kids who have cerebral palsy. We have a speech therapist right now who works with the hearing impaired. So those are just some examples of that. And then our teachers get a wide array of training from outside of High Hopes, but also from within High Hopes, from our therapists. So it's really a beautiful thing. And the school it's just amazing seeing how these kids don't see any difference in one another. In fact, we use that word friends a lot, and they're just all friends, and they don't see the differences. I just had our nurse tell me a story that she was in a classroom doing a tube feed on a child, and one child said to her, I guess I just had my button taken out before I got a little older. But she just assumed we all ate that way once upon a time. And we just love it because they don't see the difference in each other. And as an educator for a long time, I just love to say it's anti-bullying because they really see we're all different. That's okay.
Yeah, and I think you're catching them at an early age where they're like sponges and they are absorbing everything, but at the same time, they don't have those kind of prejudices and filters baked in. And so they're coming in with a curiosity and a willingness to learn and to have empathy and to be respectful of each other. And especially if you're modeling that as an institution, as an organization, as a school, and they see that this is how we all play together and that we are all together, it really does create this very inclusive opportunity to build relationships that then carry forward throughout their life. And I think that's, to me, you're not only equipping and training and educating, you really are building relationships that will transcend and carry forward for our community.
Absolutely. I mean, wouldn't that have been great if all of us had been trained that way and we didn't have to learn it as we got older? There's no fear. There's just acceptance. And it really is great. I know last year in our kindergarten, that's the oldest classroom we have in our school, but we had a new friend in the class, and that friend said something about a little girl whose fingers didn't look the same as everybody else's, and so that her fingers were sad, and some child quickly said, oh no, that's just part of who she is. So they not only learn that empathy, but they are going to defend, and really like any of us should do with any of our friends.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Share how families and children enroll, how they find you. What is that kind of that first step look like on your end?
Okay, that's a great question. Uh, when we have surveyed our parents as they come to us, we find out that they hear about us either from word of mouth, which is music to my ears, or from a pediatrician or some other type of doctor, some specialist, or through Tennessee Early Intervention System, TEIS, and that is a state program for which we're a vendor, and that includes children birth to 3 years old. So many times they might hear about us through their coordinator at the state level. So,
Carry that forward. So as children are really on both sides, from the schooling side, but also to the kind of the therapeutic side, um, walk us through the relationship you build with the family, in the sense that they're learning in the environment, but then they have to be able to carry that forward. And so a part of this is the support network that you're able to provide the families and the
uh,
parents, so that they, as a whole experience with their whole lives, can be successful in giving their children the most uh, opportunities ahead.
you're almost stating our mission statement without
That's good.
knowing it,
That's pretty close.
because really we are trying to equip these children and youth, because we in the clinic we see kids up to 21 years, but these children and youth and their families with the skills they need to be successful. So you have hit on something, as maybe someone who isn't in this world every day, but you've hit on something that's very important. And I'll tell you, during the past few weeks during COVID-19, we had to literally change our business model and start doing telehealth sessions. And parents have been so, so grateful, because it's like their one lifeline that they are getting for help with these kiddos. And it is stressful. And yes, our teachers, our therapists are there to, our nurse, to speak with parents about things, because they don't see their physician every day. And so it's just nice to speak with people who know their child well, and just some empathy and understanding with them too, but also here's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Because I've said for a long time, children don't come with instruction booklets, and then it's even more complex when you have a child with special needs.
Carry it forward, because as you're talking with COVID-19 and all the pivots that everyone unfortunately is having to make to be able to stay safe and healthy, but also to manage their family and their businesses, what are some of the pivots outside of obviously moving to the telehealth, but what are some of the other pivots that you're having to make, or the other protection pieces? What does it look like in terms of the effect that it's having on you all overall?
Okay, well, we were closed for the entire month of April, the very end of March and the entire month of April for the school. The clinic was doing telehealth only, no in-person therapy visits. But so we were closed for the school for that month. We just opened this week again on Monday, on May 4th. And so it seemed like it was going to be very complex, but it has been very smooth. We literally have staff members from the school who go out to the cars and in the car line and take temperatures and talk with parents. And then we bring the children in. And then at 3:30, we do the same thing. We bring the children back to the cars. And honestly, we have had very happy staff members, kids, and parents this week with having our school kiddos back. And so our therapy this week, our therapists are seeing the school kids who need therapy, and then they're still doing telehealth. And then by the end of this month, we're doing evaluations in person in the clinic, but we'll be back seeing all kids in the clinic at the end of this month.
Well, and
So
that gives you
it's
some hope for
interesting.
some normalcy. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's different, but it gives people a sense of normalcy again, which I think is needed, desperately needed.
Oh, it absolutely is. These parents still needed to be able to see these therapists and to get help and be able to talk about it. And I've talked with several of our therapists who say the kids are really doing well and they're still making progress. So that is our ultimate goal. But the kids were so happy to come back to the school. So
Yeah.
happy.
Well, because back to relationships, they're building those
Yeah,
relationships, and that's their normalcy and their protection and their happiness as well. What
right.
on your end, being a nonprofit, which I want to make sure we touch on, how can we help?
Yeah.
Because obviously, when you look at the way you're funded, the programs, everything you're doing, being a nonprofit, that means there's a huge need for financial support and for underwriting your efforts.
There's no question. Because we may be a little larger nonprofit than some, and we do have revenue, but it far from covers our cost. In our school, we have 40% more staff than we're required to have, and that's because of our diverse learners. And it's the right thing to do, but we lose money. And then in our clinic, we are again a vendor for the state, and then we are a vendor for all the commercial insurances. And so we don't have the contracts that would allow us to make money. And we're in network with all the insurances, which I won't go into that, but some pay better than others. But it's again the right thing to do. So we have to raise, like this year with our budget, we have to raise $750,000
Gotcha.
to cover the programs. Well, then we've had COVID hit. Fundraising is very difficult right now, and I understand that. I really, really do, because there's not a person who's unaffected. There's not a business that's unaffected. And so I really understand that, and it's just going to take a lot of thought to figure this out for the next year for all nonprofits. So yes, we definitely need help. I always say the number one thing we need is for children and families who need us to find us. So we love this exposure. We hope your listeners will tell others about us, or even friends or relatives that they think, oh, you might be able to help. That's number one. Number two, a lot of times we like volunteers. Right now we can't have them, but sometimes there are a lot of things that people can help us with, and we're very grateful for that. But then number three, yes, we need help financially to be able to continue providing these programs. We're almost 36 years old, and we want to be able to provide these programs for that many years and then forward.
I like the fact that you mentioned that there are so many ways that people can help, and telling others, raising awareness, using their social media to be able to share your story and get it out there so that others know and raise awareness on that end. And then, like you said, hopefully once things normalize, coming in and being a volunteer, taking a school tour, all of those where you can personalize it. And then
Right.
obviously winning their heart and opening the wallet to be able to then help underwrite your efforts. That when you look at it from a community lens, like I said, it's not just helping the individual children and the families, it's creating this ripple effect in the community that inclusion and empathy and these relationships and, like you said, fighting bullying and standing up for each other, all of that becomes powerful as an opportunity through you all, which I think is a very important piece of this, is the role modeling that it creates for the community at large.
I would agree with you on that. I really would. And I think it is something that most people, when they come through here, they're not the same, because they do see things differently, and They see how our children interact with one another and how our families interact with one another, and that everybody's invited to the birthday parties, everybody, and they all have a great time.
Yeah.
So it's a community of learners in a unique way, and it is something we all need to learn. Wherever we are on this journey, we all need to learn that and be better at it. So yes, but we need help. We need help to do it. And again, I don't know what that help looks like for this next year, because all nonprofits are going to need it. But nonprofits, I believe, just really kind of help weave so many important things into the community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you're on the front lines and you're an essential piece of this. Go ahead and wrap up and talk about website, phone number, social media. Where do we go to raise our hand and help out?
Well, yes, our website is highhopesforkids.org, and that's FOR kids. And then our phone number is 615-661-5437. And let's just look for us on Facebook under High Hopes for Kids. You'll find us there. In fact, we've been on, I know by the time this comes out, this will be past, but we've had a lot of parent testimonies on for the last week, moving up to the big payback. But they would be very helpful to someone who's really researching this. And so we hope you'll visit our website and then eventually come visit us. Hope you will too. You would love it.
I look forward to it. Well, Gail, thank you for all you and your team do. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.